We all are,
It says
which is
these
a
are
no.
Well, and
counted.
for us.
So look at, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, March 5th meeting of the Legislative Committee.
We have
do,
to
but you don't. Right.
Here, Member Chaplin.
Yes,
I
I
hear
hear you. There's always
Member
room
Childress.
for.
Yeah.
Here to start.
Here,
Member Eckhoff.
Here.
Member Galassi. Here. Vice Chair Zay.
Waxy.
okay. Can I name somebody a member of the committee?
Oh, what's this?
How many, is there a vacancy to which you can have someone made a member?
Yes, member Zay is not here.
Member Zay is not here, then yes, you can, oh, no, you don't need it for a quorum.
We don't need it.
You
You
don't
only
need-
need four, right?
Yep, you need four, you have four and four.
Okay, thank you. I move to approve the minutes of
Second.
the Legislative Committee of Tuesday, February 27th. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Do we have any public comments?
We do not.
We do not. All right. I do not have any chair's remarks at this point, other than to say, I am here to facilitate this meeting. And I will encourage your discussion and your decisions. I'm just here to facilitate. All right. So now I move to approve the legislative LEGR 2-24, a resolution adopting the county's 2024 federal legislative program.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
I'm
Like,
like, whoa, I think
Like
we-
heart
I gotta
attack.
appreciate that.
That makes our lives easier.
You know, we heard about pig butchering just a few minutes ago.
okay, well, let's do the easy stuff first.
Include one of these in.
How do I move?
Should we take them individually?
So
Okay,
you're-
make a
You
motion
should
to
take them
amend.
individually because there's a number of these amendments
We
that,
all have this packet with
Why
Sheila's
don't
on
you
the top
Sheila's first?
packet.
I think that's probably best.
So should I move to approve?
Well, you should.
Or move
move
to
to
amend?
One at a
should be an-
time.
Someone should make an amendment, and there needs to be a
One at a
second to include proposed amendment number 1.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to accept and include in our legislative agenda, member Sheila Rutledge's proposed amendment number 1 on the environment.
Second.
There are the two highlighted yellow sentences. Is everybody have
It's
that?
on the first page. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Or any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Perfect. So we're including Sheila's amendments in our legislative. Got it. Okay, so now I would welcome discussion on the make a motion to amend our protect residents from gun violence part of this legislative agenda.
But you have some choices. You could probably go item by item, but it might be easier to have discussion first and then move whichever amendment seems to have the most support.
Okay, so I assume you all have read proposed amendment number 2 from member Galassi, proposed amendment number 3 from member Yu, and then a mix of both of them, proposal number 4 from member Blumenthal.
No. Not
So discuss. Member Captain.
Well, I support, member Hughes, number 3. That's where I'm standing on this one. I like, I think the mixed one, the proposed, some of this stuff like enabling judges discretion to hold detainees pre-trial for possession, that's in the Safety Act. It's already there. And ensuring possession of legal weapons carry mandatory prison sentence or grants judges the discretion to order. So that's all already in the Safety Act, so I think we're being redundant. So I would support amendment number 3.
Yeah, I support member Yu's proposal as well, which is number 3. I like the fact that she has done research and it has included that into it. And I also want to remind this committee that these are bullet points. We don't want to get too far in the weeds.
Right.
I know member Guston sent in several pages of what his assault weapon is.
For further discussion some other
26
time.
pages of it. And,
I know.
It's
more important.
I just want to remind the committee that these are just bullet points. We're not a legislative body. We're just giving our legislators our federal legislators' direction on things that DuPage County is interested in. So I don't want to get too deep in the weeds as Member Custom proposed. No, I'm just joking. It was helpful. Thank you. So that's my piece. I would vote for, number 3, amendment number 3. Yes, Member.
So can we go through line by line and decide if any of the items I'm suggesting can be agreed upon?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So we start with the first one, include enhancing the penalties for,
Where are you, Carrie? Just on which amendment?
Amendment number 2.
Number 2.
On number 2, okay, thank you. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure, okay,
so starting in the highlighted areas.
okay.
These include enhancing the penalties for any crime committed with a gun.
I'm okay with that, but I'm opposed to anything called mandatory prison. We have judges, we elect them to do and judge over.
Excellent.
And the one thing that especially, I'm especially sensitive to that because I've seen what mandatory sentences have done to the Black community and has corrected. It takes no discretion. People that first time offenders, things like that, all of a sudden, boom, you're in jail for life. And that has just been horrendous when it comes to our community. It's been really, really bad.
But this is felons who possess guns. So you don't think
Again-
that should be a mandatory, we're
No.
not saying for life, just any amount of time.
The judge should be doing his job. If that man deserves 20 years, then the judge should give him 20 years. It shouldn't be a book that says, well, I'd like to do this, but the guideline saying, this is my minimum, or this is my mandatory sentence. That's what we have judges.
Well, and also, I don't think that we need to say, requiring mandatory prison, because you're already saying in the first part of that sentence, these include enhancing penalties.
Yeah,
I'm
and
So
okay
that's
with
already
that.
enhanced
Enhanced
no, this is what we
penalties.
agree to, because
I'm
that's
good with
fine.
that.
I
but
agree. I
say
could-
mandatory on top
I
of
could
it.
keep that in too.
Okay, so, enhancing penalties
It's very broad.
is broad enough
Yes, I think it's broad.
to allow our legislators to kind of get an idea of where we're going. Is that okay, Member Galassi? What do you think? Point, counterpoint?
Well, let me just finish.
Oh,
Now,
I'm sorry.
mine,
Go ahead.
if it ends up being enhanced penalty, ends up being 30 years, 50 years, whatever it is, that's an enhanced penalty. To say it's mandatory on top of it, I can't agree with that at all.
My counterpoint to that is I believe that the system isn't working properly and that there's too much discretion being allowed judges. And when a felon, we are fighting to put these gun laws on books. And if we're not going to fight to properly enforce them, I don't know what the point is of having them on books. So if a felon is illegally possessing a gun, and we all don't agree in principle that that person should serve prison time, then why are we fighting to have that law in place?
We're not saying that they don't deserve prison time. I'm not even saying they don't deserve whatever the judge gives them. But each case should stand on its own in front of the judge and in front of the jury of their peers. Should be that man's day in court. Whatever penalties come down. Again, if it's 20 years, if it's 50 years, he's a felon, okay, I get it. But mandatory sentencing has done nothing but ruin communities of color across this country. And that's fact. That is not Mike saying it. The record speaks for itself. When presidents end up going in and commuting sentences of people who have these long mandatory sentences. And that's not even, you got Obama did it, you had Trump have to do it.
Even governors do.
They walk in and say, this is ridiculous. Why are you, well, it was mandatory, so I had to give it to you. So when you look at our top officials, in governors, presidents, doesn't matter what party they are, they all go in and see things and say, this doesn't make any sense. This person got this mandatory sentence. If the judge feels that that's their sentence, let the judge give it to them. I just don't believe in mandatory sentences. Every case should stand on its own.
Okay, my,
Member Chapa had her hand up.
No, well, I was just saying, yeah, the mandatory, sentencing, I'm not comfortable with that at all either. And and again, like for our legislative agenda, I think we're getting very much into the weeds here. I do support, though, I like including appropriate penalties for possession and use of such weapons, because I think that gives a broad overview, but, yeah, the mandatory sentencing, I just think it, like Michael said, it's kind of like our zoning. When we look at a property, we look at each one individually. We don't apply the same standard because every situation is unique. So, you know, to say that if you have a weapon and it's 30 years for whatever the charge is, even, it could be the same for somebody that's been a convicted felon or for somebody that never had a charge against them. So that mandatory sentencing makes me very, very uncomfortable. I can't support it, but I could definitely support including appropriate penalties for possession and use of such weapons. You know, and I mean, there's a lot of laws that we're not enforcing. The red flag law, there's a lot, I mean, our own sheriff wasn't enforcing the law. I mean, so there's a lot of laws that aren't being enforced with guns. So I think we can't be, because I would put in here then that our sheriff should follow every single gun law too and not fight against it. But I think that including appropriate penalties for possession and use of weapons, I think that's a very good sentence, and I definitely could support it, but
I do
yeah,
support the enhanced
I
penalty.
do too. I support that too.
It's the word mandatory that I'm not going.
So can I just tell you what I'm hearing, and then I'll go to you, Member Galassi. What I'm hearing is this, that everybody can support the first sentence. These include enhancing dependent penalties for any crime committed with a gun. And then two of our members cannot support the next sentence or the next requiring mandatory prison sentences for felons who possess guns. And then I will say that next piece, increasing penalties for individuals who modify handguns, allowing them to act in a high capacity manner, is kind of redundant of the first sentence. These include enhanced penalties of any crime committed with a gun. So what I'm saying is modifying a handgun is already illegal. So it would be redundant to that first sentence. That's what I'm hearing so far. Yes?
The first
Okay.
sentence is for any crime committed with a gun. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, they're slightly different because it's any crime
Okay,
committed with
let's,
a gun.
Member Galassi did have her hand up.
Yeah, so the first sentence is any crime committed with a gun. I understand there's not support for the second part. My reasoning for putting that in is because I believe there's too many cases where judges are being too lenient and it's causing an increase in crime. I understand it's not being supported, but by Member Childress and Member Chaplin.
Which one to carry are you, oh, the word mandatory, that's,
For
The
felons,
first part
for
is-
felons.
okay.
Because I think judges are being too lenient on those laws. Then the next one, increasing penalties for individuals who modify handguns, allowing them to act in a high capacity manner
See,
is,
that's already illegal, so that's done in the first sentence.
but the first sentence is a crime committed with a gun.
Penalties.
It's a crime committed with a gun versus
A
altering.
crime committed on a gun?
No, she just said, if I could speak, that she's talking about altering the weapon, right?
As
Which
opposed
is
to committing
illegal.
a crime with a gun.
Right.
Committing a crime with a gun would be like an armed robbery or an armed carjacking.
Yeah.
Right, so if I buy it, go home, play with it, fix it to where it
So how do you all feel? Oh, I'm sorry, I had,
is what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, so you're in possession of an altered gun that creates it to be like an assault rifle, which is.
Member
bad.
Guston and then member you.
Two different things.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Listen, you know, we actually passed the ban gun law in Naperville, so
Let me refresh
Lucas.
that Naperville is a home rule.
it is totally,
Community.
and we don't have that flexibility. However, I did learn a few things. And we can put a lot of things on the books, but if we don't have, we can have the bark, but if we don't have the bite, we're not actually doing anything except facilitating a conversation here. I hear what, Member Childress and Member Chaplin are saying about the required mandatory prison sentence. I get that, but maybe we use the word recommending prison sentence to be able to give those judges more comfort in making those decisions, because a lot of times they are difficult decisions to make, even with a convicted felon. So I think we can soften or replace requiring mandatory prison sentences for felons who possess guns with recommending. I also, with the handgun allowance, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but high capacity manner, are we talking about, now again, a lot of guns come in parts. So are we talking about bump stock, I think they call it, where now that handgun is no longer a one cylinder thing, it's a multi thing. So, having that clarity within the language, I think, is important for legislators, because there are a lot of people that don't know guns, right? So this would give clarity, and who is the reader, right? I mean, we know as much as we know, but we don't know what they know. And so you almost have to language this, so it's enough for that legislator who may not know anything, can understand what's the intent, right? I don't have, listen, for me on the gun thing, more is better than less. And the more we put in there, the better it is, because they can pull of what's important to them and how they can get legislation moving forward on the issue. So that's just my comments. I'm good with everything in this paragraph. Requiring mandatory prison, I think it should be recommending mandatory prison sentence for felons who possess the guns. But I think, you get a lot of voices heard on this issue versus limited.
Remember you.
So, from a policy perspective, I think it would be a hard sell for us to say the county board to recommend or require any kind of mandatory sentencing guidelines, period.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a problem there, right? And as Member Childress had stated before, and I also know this too, coming from a social work background, and that there is a lot of evidence to show that mandatory prison guidelines are something that we are moving away from for multiple reasons. But I really want to focus more on the other part, which is the increasing penalties for individuals who modify handguns. There is evidence, research to show that the modification of handguns, accessories such as bump stocks and arm braces, all of that makes firearms more deadly. That does increase gun violence. That does increase lives lost. So from that perspective, if we were to say, the county supports regulations prohibiting modification of handguns or accessories that make firearms more deadly, I would be, okay with that particular language. Again, it would be supporting regulations that prohibit modification of handguns or accessories that make firearms more deadly.
What was that unit supporting regulations?
The county
Yeah.
supports regulations.
We're just writing it down just to have an idea of what's.
Supporting regulations that prohibit modification of handguns or accessories that make firearms more deadly. So that's basically the same language, or at least the intent of what Carrie was talking about with regard to modifying handguns.
Okay. Remember the last.
It's sort of my intent, but you're missing my point, and that is to Member Guston's point, if we're not putting any bites behind these laws, so you're saying supporting regulations, I'm not just supporting regulations. I'm supporting increased penalties. There's a huge difference. So I do not agree with that. I think we all agree that, turning a handgun into a high capacity weapon is something we're all opposed to, but I fully want the verbiage in there, increasing penalties for people who do that, because we want to stop gun violence. And if, I'm just not supporting the regulations, because if those regulations aren't being enforced, then they don't do us any good.
Can I just state in response, I think currently we don't have enough on the books that actually prohibits the modification of handguns or accessories. And that's why we need that first before we can never talk about enhancing the penalties. But, you know, we already have the general language of enhancing the penalties for any crime committed with a gun. So that's already in there. So that's the broad
Yeah.
understanding and intent of what you're trying to get at too.
So can we,
wait a minute, first I haven't heard Member Garcia speak.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding, well, I totally understand what you're trying to get with this. But what I don't feel it is the DuPage County Board's position is to tell judges how to actually put the bite in it. I think that is their job to do that. I think we have to do regulations. We are trying to do regulations as legislation agenda. So while I understand that what you're trying to do is try to stop this from happening from getting more kind of, sentencing. I think that what we have to do is with the legislation first, because that's where we need to be focusing on. I'm very much in favor of your wording, where penalties for individuals who modify handguns, allowing them to act in a high capacity manner. And then adding that to member use, that's how I think it should be written. I am not in favor of mandatory sentences for all the reasons that member Childress stated. I think that there's been a history that has shown that there is inequitable treatment in terms of mandatory sentencing. So I think we have to be quite aware of that. So thank you.
Member Galassi and then Member Echo.
oh, refer to member Echo first, please.
I just want to clarify a couple of points. First of all, the Safety Act that was recently passed eliminated discretion on behalf of judges, because now they either have to let people go or keep them in jail, but there's not the in-between discretion to allow them out on a bond.
No, it does.
No,
It,
it does.
that's
They go to
exactly what it
court.
does.
After they,
Yeah, anyway, the mandatory prison sentences are often, we already have those in place. So for a class 4 felony or something, minimum of 1, maximum of 3 years. So what happens in situations like that, those are in place. If the person's gonna plead guilty on X, then this is the minimum, that's the maximum. But so what the way they get around that is they come to a plea agreement where the charge is reduced to a different crime, where they don't have that mandatory language that the judge has to follow. So we've already got mandatory prison sentences for a ton of different crimes. So I how you want to go with this, I guess that's different. I just want to clarify that. The second thing is this increasing penalties for individuals who modify handguns, allowing them to act in a high capacity manner. Whether or not I guess if there's not a law in the books, and then putting a law in the books would be increasing the penalty. If there is an existing law in the books and increasing the penalty for that, that's something else that this talks to. But that is different than enhancing the penalty for any crime committed with a gun. Because the person who modifies the handgun to allow it in a high capacity manner may never use it. Maybe he gives it to somebody else who uses it, but then it allows you to go back to the person who modified it to charge them.
Member you.
So with regard to what Member Eckhoff just said, so on a state by state basis, we don't have a prohibition. Not every state has a prohibition to modify a handgun or to, add accessories. And that is why, we can include this at the federal level, because that is something that we can do, that we can suggest, right? To support regulations that prohibit this kind of activity. And the enhancing penalties, that's kind of more of a other broader thing. So we can add the enhancing the penalties. I just think that we first have to talk about prohibiting the behavior of modification of handguns and accessories.
I'm sorry, I passed over Member Galassi.
That's okay. My recommendation would be to say both. Like, I fully agree with Member Guston. There's so many people that can argue every side of the gun issue and say, if we do this, it won't help. If we do this, it won't help. Why not try everything that we possibly can? We all agree that there is a terrible epidemic of gun violence in our country. So to say, we're not sure if this is gonna help. I hear that on both sides of the aisle, and it frustrates the heck out of me, because we need to do everything we possibly can to get a hold of the gun violence epidemic. And so therefore, my recommendation for this part of this is to say, to combine the two
That's fine.
verbiages, to support the passage, I don't remember exactly what you said, but I agree with your verbiage, but I would like to keep my verbiage in place that says that, you know, if it's already in place in a state, because some states it is, so that's why I'm saying it has to, I agree with you, maybe it is in some states, but it's not in others. So we need to say, we need to support the passage and increase the penalties for those states that already have this in place.
I'll go to you in a second, Member Childress. I just wanted to, from those people in the committee, I just want to see how many would like to keep. These include enhancing the penalties for any crime committed with a gun.
Can I make a
Who could live with that?
suggestion on
Yes.
how we should maybe do this? So where it says, so right before the yellow part, it says including appropriate penalties for possession and use of some such weapons. Then maybe we should put, I don't know if it would make sense, let me see here. Then how about if we put supporting regulation that prohibits, so instead of say include enhanced penalties for any crime committed with a gun, maybe we could put supporting regulations that prohibit, what is this, handguns, supporting regulations that prohibits individuals who modify handguns, allowing them to act in high capacity manner, and then put, we support appropriate penalties for this and possession of, you know, maybe we can put the penalties after
Before
that.
we
possession
rewrite this, I
penalties
just
after
want to
that.
point out, we still have to go through and reviews.
Well, that's what I was just trying to help.
That's why I'm trying to figure out what pieces of this we can live with. That's why I said these include enhancing the penalties. Is everybody comfortable with enhancing the penalties for any crime committed with a gun?
Although staff put together amendment 4 that incorporated both of their
Yeah.
thoughts, which
Right, and we need to go through that as
Really-
well.
Well, no, unless we
Might
can
resolve
come
this
on
issue.
We don't have to look at this. No, I
Okay,
don't-
so can everybody live with enhancing the penalties for any crime committed with a gun?
Yes, but where it goes in might. You
I'm
know,
just trying to get bullet points at this point.
yeah, I think I
And then
support
I
that.
don't have a consensus on requiring
Yeah,
mandatory
has a
prison
question.
sentences.
We're,
Yeah, this
we're
is-
doing a live,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
stream.
member Chaplin, is that what you're thinking, enhancing penalties for a crime committed with a gun? Adding, is that what you're trying to talk, sorry, I
So-
brought it up on the screen as we're
Yeah, so what I'm
talking,
saying
is-
I apologize.
is that staff's recommendation?
No, this
Number
is,
4?
member used amendment with
So, including
these
appropriate-
two things.
including appropriate penalties for such use of weapons. Supporting regulations that prohibit individuals who modify handguns, allowing them to act in high capacity manner. And enhancing penalties for this crime as well as any other related gun crime. Do you see what I'm saying? Put that at the end of that somehow, do you know what I mean? So we're not redundant in our enhancing the crime. Enhancing the penalty, so we don't say it twice in here.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm trying to massage it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll remember you.
Yeah, so I think what's up there actually. I think that's sufficient, just because when you say enhancing the penalties for any crime committed with a gun.
I can't even. what
Is
we're
this
talking
for,
about.
I'm sorry, Jason, is this for?
This is,
This is amendment, this is member use.
Yes.
So
Amendment.
this is amendment 3?
but
Yes,
Jason's adding
Oh, there you
what
go.
we're.
I've added the two
supporting.
things that we said from amendment
Yes.
2.
Oh, yes, there you
So
go. That's
he's
exactly
adding
right.
member
Thank you.
Galassi's
Thank you.
pieces.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
was
that's
like,
one
you
bullet
got it up
point.
there.
Okay,
That's
thank
one
you.
bullet point. The next
I
bullet
thought I
point is
understood what you were asking.
requiring mandatory prison sentence is something we're not gonna live with, right?
No,
That's what I got from
recommending
review.
prison sentence. instead.
Increasing penalties for individuals who modify handguns, allowing them to act in a high capacity manner.
That's the question. It's my more question then.
Okay,
Is that, and I guess I'll refer to you. Is there a law prohibiting that now
Some states, yes, some
Some
states no.
states,
to modify? Okay, so that's, I don't know. That's what I'm
very
asking.
few states, very few states.
So to say increase or enhance the penalty when there's no law.
That would be for the states that have a law.
So we need to.
That's why I'm saying to keep it more general, enhance the penalties for any crime committed with a gun, like that can get into it. It's not as specific, right?
What if we went with outlawing the modification first
Right, that's what that is, supporting regulations to prohibit modification.
and then come
The
back?
red, right?
That's
Supporting
exactly what we have.
regulations that
So it's
prohibit.
already in the red.
Okay.
Okay, the next stanza is enabling judges' discretion to hold
Wait, no,
detainees.
that's, I had my hand up for that. I still think we are missing a piece of this, to member Eckhoff's point, and there are some states that have that on the books, so for those states, I'd like the penalties to be increased. So I like what's being done here, but it can't just say enhancing the penalties for any crime committed with a gun, because to member Eckhoff's point, if I've altered a handgun to make it
Okay,
an illegal assault rifle, I haven't committed a crime with that gun. So we're not getting to the point.
okay,
So
so
you-
would you want to add in there enhancing the penalties for
Increasing
modification of
penalties.
handguns and any other crime committed with a
Yes.
handgun?
Yes.
So it's increasing penalties for individuals who modify handguns, allowing them to act in a high capacity manner.
Or commit a crime with a gun.
Or commit any crime with a gun?
So she wants to add enhancing the penalties for modification of handguns.
Or any crime.
any
If we just
Or
add
any
penalties
crime.
for and
Let's
put
add those two.
So
modification.
you have that, Jason?
So two separate, hold on, I want to make sure I understand. So the second sentence, enhancing the penalties for any crime committed with a gun, that's solid where it is. The first one is changing.
No, no,
No,
no.
we want to add
Enhancing
enhancing the penalties for any
penalties
crime. We want
for
to add.
modification of a
penalties
handgun.
Increasing penalties.
Yes, it's
Enhancing the
enhancing.
penalties.
Well, I don't want to
for
have enhancing
modification.
twice.
Like
I don't want to have
so
enhancing
big.
twice. So
Right.
enhancing is there, and then the next one
Well,
is.
actually, it's the same phrase, enhancing the penalties for modification of a handgun or any crime committed with a gun.
Okay, that's it.
And then
Okay,
enhancing.
say
yeah.
that again. So the
Jason,
second
please.
sentence, remember you, please.
Enhancing the
Like,
penalties
like
for
the
modification of a handgun, comma, or any crime committed with a gun.
You know,
I guess-
nobody speak until Jason gets
Is
it.
that correct?
Yes.
Is it good? Okay.
You tell me, I don't know.
All right, enhancing the penalties for modification of a handgun or any crime committed with a gun. Is that good, Member Galassi?
Yes.
Okay, I saw Member Childress and then Member Garcia.
Any crime with a gun, still kind of, I will support it, but I don't, it'll be soft, because I worked with gangmen. And they're smart enough to right now, take a gun,
That's good.
they know what they know that there's a felony attached to that, enhance and all that. And give that gun to a kid. Okay, that kid will never speak up because they're afraid and they're afraid for their family. They will never speak up, and then they'll come before the judge and we'll have this, well, it was any crime with a gun. We know that kid was handed that gun off. I mean, it happens all the time. I've seen it so many times in areas that I've worked in. And so I want to make sure that I support enhanced penalties and all of that, but there has to be some sort of judgment on our behalf, or on the judge's behalf, to understand that the person with the gun may not committed a crime, but he's never gonna say anything, because he's gotta live in that neighborhood, his family's gotta live in that neighborhood, he's got sisters in that neighborhood, and he's never gonna open his mouth. Which is the problem we're having right now in not in Inglewood, but out south where the Juneteenth shooting was. There are so many people there that saw things and are never gonna talk. And that's one of the issues that we're having with the investigation now.
You're right. I don't know what the
Okay,
answer
I
is.
saw Member
No, I
Garcia
don't
and
either.
then Member you. Member Garcia, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I totally do not like the word enhancing. I don't understand. Are you trying to increase? Is that what you're trying to do? Increase the penalties?
Yes,
Okay,
Why not just?
so why wouldn't we just use the word
I didn't say
increasing?
enhance. I'd be
Okay.
happy with increasing.
It is on here. It is on your
Yeah,
proposed amendment. That
that's
enhances.
right. I may have mistyped that.
I didn't, yeah, this wasn't what I
Okay.
exactly said.
Enhancing to
Oh,
me
it's
is
not?
just
No.
so
This is not
vague.
you?
I sent
But
bullet
this is
points.
just the
Bullet
actually
points, I had
member
to put it
glass that
in.
you
I
want.
had to put it in.
Oh, okay.
I know, I'm just saying that's
So you would
such a
like to see
vague
it
word.
increasing.
It's like, you could be going.
Increasing better.
It's a legal term of art.
Okay, as long as
A
everybody
penalty
agrees on
enhancement is
increasing,
an
then I'm
additional
fine.
word.
I changed it. I
Okay,
changed it.
legal word?
changed.
It's a legal
Thank
term.
you.
We're good. We
Is
can
there
all.
anything?
All right, it's a
we're
legal
agreeing.
word and I'm not a
Yeah.
lawyer.
It's okay.
I will let the lawyers
Yeah,
handle it,
but
but
it's in there
to
now.
me, it just seems very
Is there anything
unclear.
else?
Good.
Anything else? Okay, member, I forgot who was next.
You, I think.
Remember you?
I don't know if I should say. I'm gonna pass.
Okay, well, I will say that the next stanza starts with enabling judges' discretion to hold detainees pre-trial for possession of illegal guns and ensuring possession of an illegal gun carries mandatory consequences. We're getting rid of the mandatory. First of all, we're getting rid of the mandatory. Secondly, the Safety Act covers that. The
I think it
Safety
ends
Act
right
covers,
there, Don, right?
enabling judges' discretion to hold detainees pre-trial for possession of illegal guns. Again, that's already done. We already have that here in Illinois anyway.
Okay, can I just make a comment? to that?
Yeah, please.
Actually, we already have that in the federal level. It's the act is called the Bail Reform Act from 1984, and so it's specifically talks about pretrial detention, so it doesn't make sense to me to include this information.
Okay, so we took that out of member Galassi's piece. Okay, good. So let's move on to, member use piece, number 3. Is
Can we
there
take a vote
is-
on this? Can we take a vote on this?
If
Because I
you
think
vote on
we're all in
this, this is a
agreement.
combination of 2, 3, and 4.
Madam, what's currently on
Yeah, I think
the
we can
screen
vote on this.
is a combination of member Galassi's
Galassi.
proposal, number
Right.
2, and the original text of member Yu's proposal, number
I
3.
understand that, but I think that we haven't gone through member use, and maybe some people have,
Okay.
Okay. I'm just, I want to make sure you.
Just for
but
clarity's
if
sake,
anybody has anything against what member you wrote, we should go do that line by line too.
I
Wouldn't
think
you
this is
agree?
it.
That's a perfectly fine way to do it. I just wanted to make sure for the record that everyone knew what was on the screen and how it got to be. That way there wasn't any confusion about what they were voting on later.
it's, and I want to clarify, I apologize, I may have been presumptuous. I heard at the
Thank
beginning,
God.
you'd like, remember, use language. I made these amendments to her language.
Gotcha.
So what you see up here is member use initial language. The red is what we've taken from member Galassi.
You know, and personally, I think we're done. I mean, personally, I would vote yes to this, but it's not my committee, it's all of our committees. So does anybody have anything to say about what's up here on the screen now or any of the stanzas of member use proposal?
Just a procedural question. So then are you gonna go to member Galassi's proposal and go through all of those
We did,
also?
we did that just now. We did that just now, and that's why we added the.
Is there another
increasing-
paragraph, staff, underneath this? Because I do see it on the printout, but I don't,
We deleted that with member use proposal.
okay.
I think he means member Galassi's proposal. which
No,
is
I think
this.
I'm looking at staff's proposal.
Oh, gotcha,
Staff's,
okay.
which includes
Is that amendment
Galassi
four?
Go
and.
back to 2, yeah. 2.
Well, no, this is the one that we're voting on. Do we all agree with this, with member use proposed amendment number 3 with member Galassi's additions in there? I'll give you a second to read it all again,
What's the
and
boyfriend loophole?
I mean, member use,
The boyfriend loophole is specifically, it was a loophole in our criminal background check that allowed domestic violence abusers to get guns. And if you were a boyfriend, you could, but if you were married, then you couldn't. And so now that closes it. So the bipartisan safety, that bipartisan act already fixed it.
And actually, if you have a mental health issue, you can give that gun to the boyfriend or the girlfriend, and it alleviates breaking the law.
So that's why there is, in the
Oh, you're saying
section,
it's already done.
that's right, that's right.
sidebar with my attorney, excuse me. Okay. Did that answer your question, Member Econ?
Yeah, but, I mean, it seems like the yellow part in here, maybe I'm missing it, is like a resuscitation of history. It's not
She
really,
did research.
oh, I know, what I'm saying is it doesn't seem like there's real big proposals in here. You're saying what's happened in the last
Right.
couple of
And
years.
I think it pertains to the fact that in prior conversations during legislative committee, people have been talking about, let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about, ghost guns. Let's talk about this or that. And so this is what we already have on the federal level. And therefore we're moving to what else do we not have, which is the reinstatement of the assault weapons ban, making sure that gun sales are done properly, criminal background checks, because there are a couple more, there's a Charleston loophole, there are a couple more loopholes with regard to background checks. So that's why those 4 that I suggested, that is yet to be done on a federal level.
Okay, I personally, as a member of this committee, like this, I can live with this. But I want to hear from you guys. Anybody have anything they'd like to take out of member use or add to member use? Are we all good? Can I have consensus? Okay, so then what do? I make a motion to approve the amended,
Yeah, the version that we've just discussed with the additions from member
Amendment 3
Galassi.
and
yes.
amended.
Okay, so should we take a vote?
Yes, you
Okay, so let's take a vote on who Jason wants this amended version with member Galassi's additions. Who
Perfectly
seconded it? Who did anybody second?
I'll
that?
second it. Okay.
Member Chaplin,
I,
member Childress,
Yes.
Chair to start,
Aye.
member Eckhoff,
Aye.
member Glassy. Aye.
Okay, well, that is approved unanimously. Excellent work. Thank you all for sharing your ideas and,
yes, thank you.
and this really is
We
terrific.
have to amend,
And now
And
we
we
need to
use a little
approve
bit
it.
of-
adopt it as amended.
Oh,
Yeah.
and now I'd like to make a motion to approve as amended.
So moved. Second.
Second, do I need a vote or just? Okay, vote please.
Member Chaplin. Aye. Member Childress.
Yes.
Chair to start,
Aye.
member Eckhoff,
Aye.
member Glassy.
Aye.
Okay, that is approved unanimously. Do we have any old business? Any new business? Okay, without objection, we're adjourned.
Great, thank you.
I'm so proud of you all. This really